Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Outgrow's Marketer of the Month. I'm your host, Dr. Saksham Sharda. I'm the creative director at outgrow.co. And for this month, we're going to interview Dale Hall, who's the CMO at Snaplogic, which is a company that provides integration platform as a service tools for connecting cloud data sources, SaaS applications, and on-premises business software applications. Thanks for joining us, Dale.
Thanks, mate. That was a great description. I couldn't have said it better myself.
I picked it up from your Wikipedia. I think someone must have thought about before putting it there.
Perfect.
So, Dale, we're going to start with a rapid fire round just to break the ice. You get 3 passes. In case you don't want to answer a question, you can just say pass. But try to keep your answers to 1 word or 1 sentence only, okay?
Got it.
All right, so the first question. How long does it take you to get ready in the mornings?
25 minutes.
Most embarrassing moment of your life?
I gave a best man speech with another best man. We were dual best men, and we completely died. It was awful.
Okay. How many hours of sleep can you survive on?
6.
Fill in the blank. An upcoming marketing trend is blank.
Artificial intelligence in everything we do.
The city in which the best kiss of your life happened.
Rome.
Pick one, Mark Zuckerberg or Jack Dorsey.
Pass.
The first movie that comes to your mind when I say the word ambition.
Wolf of Wall Street.
When did you last cry and why?
Pass.
Yeah, the biggest mistake of your career.
Staying at one very large company for 9 years.
How do you relax?
I exercise.
How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
Too many. 5 or 6.
A habit of yours that you hate.
Habit of mine that I hate. Pass. I don't think that's 3 passes, but I don't have one.
The most valuable skill you've learned in life.
That you have 1 mouth and 2 ears for a reason. So you should listen more than you should talk.
Okay, and the last question is your favorite Netflix show.
God, that's a tough one. Let's go with Peaky Blinders.
All right, that's the end of the round. You passed 3 times, so you scored 7 on 10, and you only win a car. Just kidding, you don't win a car. I do this to everyone, but anyway, okay.
The same questions you asked to everyone? Or do you mix it up?
We kind of mix them sometimes, but I think we were supposed to interview you in July, so these haven't been updated in a while, so they've been used before. So, yeah. All right, so let's go on to the bigger questions. So I describe Snaplogic as a company that provides integration platform as a service tools for connecting cloud data sources, SaaS applications, and on-premises business software applications, which basically sounds like a mouthful. So how would you actually describe it to a person who's never heard this terminology before?
That is probably more of the technical description. Basically, the way we think about what Snaplogic does is it's a way that you can help organizations connect their applications, make sure the data is uniform, and then use the data to, I would say, have better business processes. So it means, does a marketer, for example, I can connect Marketo to Salesforce pretty easily. But if I really want to do customer 360, I need to know all the other touch points that a customer is engaging with. So if I'm using Gainsight, for example, or a tool to look at what the customers are using in the product, I can use Snaplogic to then connect what customers may be doing around some of my outbound, if I'm using Marketo, I can use it to then pull together what those same customers are doing in the product without having to go to multiple places, or and I can share that across multiple teams. So my customer success team could see it, the sales team can see it. So you can help to identify, for example, if a customer's showing more interest in a specific product, if they're raising more cases about one of the products they're using, so it could mean that there's a problem with the account or the challenge. So it's connecting applications, making sure the data is uniform, and then being able to share that across the organization.
And isn't there like concerns with like whether marketer would share all that data in the first place? Like, I guess it's not all available in general, but like, are there any limits to what extent you can join this?
There's no limit. I think just what happens in most organizations today is we're so busy doing what we're focused on. So I'm so busy trying to drive demand that you have this data, but you don't necessarily have the time or the inclination to say, you know what, I'll share that with my CSM team because they might be interested. You've got to have focused activities, or you've got to have meetings about it. So if there is a way that you could actually pull those together easier, then I think it would be easier to share the data. But it always feels like so much of an effort to really get that into the hands of everyone that could use it. I just don't think it happens.
And why do you think more and more enterprise organizations are rethinking their approach to legacy data and application integration?
I think you've probably seen it like I have. There's that chart that shows you all the new just MarTech solutions that are out there. There's like 7,000. So there's 7,000 MarTech solutions. So the reason I think we have to make more of an effort, and why the legacy systems are not right, is, first of all, there are applications everywhere, right? And marketing specifically, I've heard this for years. I don't know how true it is, but marketers always want to try new tools. They actually have a lot of budget to do things like, try new tools and new applications. But because they want to do that, a lot of the legacy systems or an IT are kind of hamstrung because they're on the hook to figure out how to do the integration themselves. So there's a lot of coding going on. There's a lot of like, how do I make sure that, the data's correct? How to make sure it's going to integrate with all the other systems? And again, a lot of the legacy play is, I'll do some coding, but guess what happens when there's an update to that application, or there's another application you want to add with it? It all has to be recoded, because that's kind of the legacy issue. And then there's the advent of things like cloud data warehousing, where people are becoming more familiar and okay with the security of moving things in and out of the cloud. A lot of the legacy systems can't deal with that. And we see that with a lot of legacy vendors in integration space, is that they still have so much on-prem stuff that they can't even get, they can't take advantage of a cloud model because they've held onto it for so long. And guess what? IT are frustrated because they want to be able to leverage new systems. They could have their coders doing new and interesting things for the business, not just trying to fix all the legacy code every time there's a new application or a new release or so on. So they want to be part of it too, but for a lot of times they're hamstrung with what they've already got.
And what do you think the future of marketers trying out new softwares all the time is headed? Where do you think it's headed?
I don't see it slowing down. I don't see it slowing down because, I think that, again, I've heard this for years. Marketing should own the customer experience, right? People have talked about it, but I think the challenge has been, how do I get access to everything that customer experience really means? So how do I really understand how to use things like a product telemetry tool? Like, I don't know how to use that. It's not my daily job. But if there was a way that I could integrate everything so that data got fed into, let's say I look at Salesforce, or let's say I'm looking at Google Sheets. If it was easily integrated, I could actually have a bigger view of what's going on with customers, and I could actually fully own the customer experience. When I hear marketers talk about they own the customer experience, it still feels like they only own a small part of it, which is like the awareness, interest, help on the acquisition, and then a lot of the other stuff around what happens when they're current customers, it gets pushed to the side because marketers are held so accountable to demand. They tend to focus on that side. So I think we're gonna. I think marketers are gonna end up owning more of the customer experience now. They can get access to more of the tools. I don't think we're gonna slow down in terms of trying new things because I think marketers really like that. Now, if you're a technology that you're trying to sell to marketers, the big challenge is make sure that it's sticky enough that it's harder to potentially like, hey, I can implement it quickly, but then I can also get rid of it quickly. Like that's the real challenge because we kind of change all the time. We're hit by, I think I get about 60 cold outreach emails a day from vendors and BDRs and technology, try this, try that. So, the challenge of selling to marketers is make sure that the product is sticky enough and they get value quickly.
And your Snaplogic kind of markets itself as an enterprise automation. What was it? Enterprise automation company. Like the word enterprise is used a lot on your website.
Yeah.
And are you specifically for enterprise? How do small and medium businesses make use of Snaplogic if they want to?
Yeah, look, when we say enterprises, it means there's the product that we have, the main product, which is called the Intelligent Integration Platform, it's about scale, it's about security, the connections it has across the business. It was originally built to be something that HR could use, finance, marketing, sales, all the lines of businesses. So it really has the ability to scale. There's a lot of other vendors that has just a smaller, more lightweight touch point. So that's how it was originally built. When we say enterprise, it could also mean the growing enterprise. So we have a couple of versions of the product now. We have something called Snaplogic Flows, which is for lines of businesses to use. So they can start using that, do some lightweight integrations early. And then if they want to grow, they've got the power of the platform behind it, right? They've got the scalability and the security, which again, once you get into these larger enterprises, we have Adobe and Siemens and like these organizations, they need to have that reliability and scalability, not just, the smaller lightweight touches, but we do have that now. It came out a few months ago. So it's not that we're excluding some of that. We have a commercial sales team that focus on that. But again, the power of the platform is as you grow, and then multiple lines of businesses could potentially use it and take advantage of it.
So speaking of enterprises, on your website, we noticed that there is a dummies guide webinar to how enterprise automation transformed Schneider Electric. Could you give us a taste of what that webinar is about?
Yeah. Well, this is a good example, right? When you talk about integrations, and some of it's very in the nitty gritty, but enterprise automation is how you enable all the lines of businesses to take advantage of what the integration platform does. So what Schneider are going to talk about is, how they were able to potentially move, hundreds of developers that were coding down to like 10, 15, and the other developers can create new applications and new things for the business because it's much easier to do integrations with something like Snaplogic. And when we talk about enterprise automation specifically, and this is what Schneider have done, it's every line of business. So marketing can use it to do some of those integrations I talked about on customer experience. HR can use it because they can create a better employee onboarding and offboarding flow. So it all happens behind the scenes. So when we say enterprise automation, we mean it's integration and automation at any point across the business, right? And again, I think what we see in the business, in our market, is there are some people that are focused on very specific use cases, but that's not, enterprise automation is a vision. It's not a product. It's not a tool. It's a way of saying you can improve all these processes in your business. You can, employees can get onboarded much easier, get their laptop easier, get their badge easier when they need a badge to come back to the offices, because the integrations are supporting it. That's enterprise automation. It's a vision of how much more efficient the business could be, not just on, using your developers in other ways, but like actually having data across the business where everyone understands what a customer's doing. So it's a lot of there's a lot of potential. And we had my product marketing team actually they actually completed a book. I should have brought one in actually. So it's actually, we do have an enterprise automation for dummies book that we're using in our demand gen too. So it's pretty cool.
Okay, I thought we could put it in post-production in your hands, since you made the movement anyway.
I'll say that. I'll send you the
Okay, so let's shift the topic a little bit to you. So you've led the marketing domain as VP and headed multiple organizations. And you complained that you were too long in one organization for 9 years, but we'll get to that. So how do you think that marketing initiatives have changed across multiple industries in your career as this VP and headed multiple organizations?
Well, I think that the use of this is why I'm interested in this space. And the company I was at before, great startup called People AI, I really resonated with that. Is I think the ability for marketers to use tools and platforms is one thing, but the amount of data we have access to, and the thing that I've seen being the power of that data, and I get it here at Snaplogic, the relationship that marketing have with sales here, not just my team with the sales team, but me with my CRO, the relationship we have is so much stronger than it was at most of the other companies I've been at. And it's got better each time because we're always aligned. We're always looking at the same set of data. We're sharing that data more easily. So over my career, whilst I'm not saying marketing and sales were always fighting, but you've heard as many stories about it, is there's always a challenge between that. And that for me feels like it's getting less and less as we start to align on tools. We're all looking at the same data. I think there are still some people, like if you're not a CMO who's driven by what you're adding to pipeline and what you're driving for the business, then I think you still may have that challenge. But I believe you have the opportunity with the platforms, with aligning on the data, to get that relationship pretty tight. And guess what? That has a massive impact on how happy you are on a daily basis. If every time you go in with a meeting with sales, they're not bitching about anything. I mean, there's never going to be like, there's always going to be something, but as long as you're looking at the same data and you're aligned on that, then I think your life is easier as a marketer.
That's great. I think we've found a topic for this episode. It can be aligning marketing and sales with. Yeah. I have to think of what the with is. Automation data. We'll think about it. Like aligning marketing and sales is a pretty good episode title.
You know what? And guess what? I am absolutely passionate about it because I've seen so many. I've been in organizations and I've seen so many organizations where marketing will call success because they ran a campaign and they got 1,000 registrations and 400 attendees, and nothing comes of it. And sales are like, marketing should celebrate when sales hit their numbers, and we delivered the 4x pipeline that we committed. Like that's what we're delivering to the business. Yes, I want my digital team to make sure they're focused on suspects and MQLs, but I don't talk to my CRO about MQLs. I only talk about, are we getting to the 4x coverage, and how many stage 2s, because that's when it becomes real pipe. How are we delivering that for the business quarter over quarter? Like that's what we both care about, because that's what drives the business.
So have you had an organization where you were working in the past, perhaps, where there was a lot of conflict with sales?
Yes, I have had some of those. And I think it comes down to, I don't know if when the organization started the year and you look at planning, I think sometimes sales do their plan based on capacity. I think marketing do their plan based on some of the initiatives they want to run and so on. And I think if they don't come together and then say, okay, how much pipeline do you expect marketing to drive, based on the bookings number that you want. If you don't have that conversation early, and frankly, every quarter, just to make sure you reset, in case the number's gone up because maybe you were short on a quarter, so you need to get up higher for the following quarter. If you don't have that discussion, you do get a lot of, finger pointing through the quarter because you both aren't aligned on it. Having said that, marketing also has to take responsibility. Hey, if you come up short, what are you going to do to fix it? Right. And I think that's another thing that I think sales really resonates with is take ownership. My CRO here, he's a super experienced guy, but he's just a big believer in, hey, things are going to go wrong, but tell me what you're going to do to fix it. Right. And he holds the same team account. He holds the sales team accountable to that. So I'm happy that it holds us accountable. If we're short on pipeline, guess what? What are we going to do? My team talk about are the things we can do, let's say in the last 4 weeks of the quarter to maybe drive some interest to make up the number next quarter. But, it has to be, the alignment has to start when you're planning the year, you're planning the quarter, and you go all the way through. I have spreadsheets up the wazoo that talk about, what their bookings number is, what percentage I have to get to for marketing driven pipe. It's offset by a quarter because what we generate in a quarter doesn't necessarily close that quarter. So it's pretty complicated, but there's a lot of alignment because my CRO knows I'm holding myself accountable to his numbers as well. And that's a big difference.
And what's your take on, let's switch properly to marketing. What's your take on influencer marketing? And have you leveraged it in any way for a company like, Snaplogic? And how does one leverage it for a company like Snaplogic?
Yeah. And when you say influencer, do you mean, give me your description of what you mean by influencer? Is it anyone that influences the brand or a specific channel?
I think in this case, when you hold a webinar with Schneider Electric and they talk on your behalf, that kind of becomes an influencer marketing strategy, in my opinion. But it's really how you interpret it. But that's one way in which I would interpret it. So I already gave the answer to my own question.
There you go. You answered it. Next. Okay, let me give my answer. So there's a couple of things I see as influencer marketing. Your example there is what I call advocacy marketing, customer advocacy, right? So internally here at Snaplogic, and I've done this I did this at two or three of my other companies. I did it at Aruba. I moved to Lithium. We did it there. We're doing it at Snaplogic. My last company was a little bit too small at the time as it was growing. But customer advocacy marketing comes from things like, what are you doing on your community? What is your strategy to engage with customers, answer their questions? How are you bringing them together? And that is, if you've got an online platform, Lithium, which is now a company called Chorus, Lithium that was their goal. It was community and social media management software. So their whole premise was, if you bring customers together, they can be your biggest source of marketing and advocacy. So are you creating an online place where customers can ask questions, you can answer, you can bring in experts and so on? So that's one. We just launched here, and I had them at two of my other companies, customer awards. This is just a way to make sure that you're recognizing what great work your customers are doing. Give them, we did actually, drinks award ceremonies in locations. Hopefully in the future we can do that. Can't do it right now. But then red carpet, everyone got dressed up. We did awards. You do the step and repeat, so they get pictures. That they feel good about that. For you as an organization, for you as a company, what you also get is customers completing their award submission. They tell you what they're doing with the product. So all of a sudden, you've almost got a customer case study written by the customer themselves. Right? So you've got the benefit of being able to recognize them, and then you get something for it too. So community awards, we launched an MVP program. We did this at Aruba Networks. So they had, they called it Airheads because it's networking, right? I think when I joined, the CEO asked me and the CMO at the time, a guy called Ben Gibson, how do we take advantage and get get to compete with Cisco. So Cisco was the 800-pound gorilla in this market. I think at the time Aruba was 400 or 500 million. Cisco's 30 billion. And we came up with the idea of creating this advocacy program. So what it was a community platform at the hub. And then we did MVP awards. We did certifications and training. We did, if you attended an event, you got kudos for that. And we created this whole model. And I think when I joined, we had about 1,000 people kind of using the community. By the time I left, I was there just over 2.5 years. That was up to about 150,000, because we'd amplified the reach of the brand, not just with customers. We created this hub where you could ask questions around any, like the new the new networking protocols. It was 11AC at the time, or the advent of bring your own device to the office. We just created this hub where people could have industry discussions, and it just ballooned. So much so is that when HPE bought Aruba Networks, when they acquired them, Meg Whitman, I think she was the CEO at the time of HP, and she said one of the jewels in Aruba's crown was what they'd done with their community and with Airheads. That was like, for me, that was like one of the biggest indicators of how powerful that influencer marketing piece can be, is using your customers, giving them benefits. So it's not just using them for your own benefits, they get something from it. But the lift for the brand, the advocacy that comes of it, I think that's something that every organization should be thinking about. Again, looking at marketing, owning the customer experience, that's a good example. All those programs were about making the customers more successful. I didn't have a goal. I wasn't held accountable to renewals or churn, but we knew those things helped people stay close to the brand and have that affinity. So, when you see renewal rates drop, even though you can't say it's because of the community or because of the awards, it's an influencer in it.
But community building is just so hard in a world that's so noisy, and in a world there's so many big players. It's like hard to build a community from scratch. I mean, like you did say that 1,000-person community already existed before you kind of transformed it into a bigger community. But is there a formula that one can use for a company that doesn't have any community? Because even like in cases of a lot of companies, and in the case of HP as well, right, they bought this community essentially, like, because it's hard for them to build their own. So it's easier for companies to just go and buy a forum that's kind of active. So what is your solution to this?
Well, we had at Lithium at the time, we had a really smart guy called Dr. Wu. I used to edit his blogs, and most of the stuff I had no idea what he was talking about. But he wrote a few books around the science of social and around gamification. So one of the things that you can do, so there's driving awareness and driving interest to bring more people in. A lot of that can come from, if people are engaged with the community already, then they start to talk about it more. Gamification is something that we used to help them get more involved in it. So start with getting those people more involved, give them some fun things to do, create levels in the community where you get recognized, create rewards around that. As they start to see that, as they start to get, I think, I can't remember the nomenclature that we use, but like we called them the gurus. So if you're engaging with the community and answering questions, if you're taking training, if you turn up at an event, you got this designation. You were an MVP guru. They would go and promote that. They get recognized for it. So they'd go on their own LinkedIn profiles, or when they talk to others, they talk about they're a guru according to Aruba. That helped to amplify and get other people to see what was going on. So this is, your influencer marketing. It's that knock-on effect. It's the brand advocacy they create because they're excited about what you're creating, right? So you have to start with that. And then we did, other little tactics, like there was an independent group of wireless, I won't say analysts, but some of them were in brands, some of them were more industry analysts. And they used to run this event called the Wireless Field Day, which is basically they'd come together at an event, or they'd get into a room and broadcast it virtually. And there'd be like 20 or 30 of them. And they'd meet and they'd put out content and that kind of thing. We started hosting them. So we hosted their broadcast on the community. So what that did was then the people that follow them would have to come to the community to watch that quarter's broadcast. So then all of a sudden, you've got all their network is being amplified from your community. So then people are coming in, and hey, maybe when they come in to watch it, you still let them watch it for free. They don't have to register. It will be on the homepage of the community for 2 hours as they did the event. But while they're there, give them the opportunity to look around, give them the opportunity to register. And that's one of the key things with community as well. You need two areas. You need a customer only area where they're going to ask really in-depth questions, or they're going to bitch about something. But then you need a public area where you drive discussions around the industry. You drive discussions around what's going on in the market. What are new trends? Because if you just hold it to customers, there's a benefit in that, clearly, but then you don't get the same kind of lift. You don't get the same kind of advocacy and multiplication of your brand if it's just for customers, because then you're being really strict about what people can say. And there's a time for that, but what you really want is people coming in and just getting familiar with the brand and what some of your experts are talking about. So, and look, so I said gamification, there's the go to other groups to bring them in. There's a bunch of other tactics. It's just, again, there's just a lot that you can focus on. I think one of the things that I always advise companies, and again, look, I was at Lithium for 5 years. So it was all about community and social media management. So I've seen the power of it, and a lot of that, I still don't think a lot of companies are taking advantage of, because it feels like, again, as a marketer, I'm focused on demand. I want to drive the business, and that's important. But then I think sometimes you lose the fact of you can help the rest of the business by creating these communities and so on. So I always advise people, you don't have to start big and have all those pieces in place like we did at Aruba, but start with start with one of the cheaper tools and start bringing questions in and linking it to their Salesforce cases, and then start driving discussions. But you need someone to own it. And I think a lot of people that try communities and fail is because they feel like, well, if we launch it, people will come. No, you need people that market in it, that add questions. Your organization, your technical people, your product marketing, they've got to be in there engaging and answering questions and posing questions and writing articles or blogs or something like that. So it takes effort, but I've seen it be pretty powerful too.
We also, I guess, in a sense, entering a stage of the internet where communities are aware and influencers are aware that they're wanted by companies. So that's why we have something like BitClout coming along and saying, come on our platform. And the more you post and the more you engage, we're going to pay you, and the value of your coin goes up. So I guess people are getting smarter and realizing that if they participate in a community, they probably should get rewards in return. So
yeah, but a lot of people probably still don't do it. And again, I think those communities where you get monetary value, I mean, maybe that's going to grow, but I think for most B2B type brands, it should be around, yes, you should recognize and reward them. There's multiple ways to do that, right? You'd be like in the tech community, we did like 4 different t-shirt designs, right? And when we offer those as like rewards for certain levels, you'd be surprised how many people they love them, right? We did a Black Lives Matter one. We did an LGBTQ one. We did 2 on brand ones, and then we made them available and said, when you get to a certain level, like pick which one you want. I was amazed because when they went out, then we'd have people showing up at webinars like 3 months later wearing their Snaplogic shirts. Right. So you do need to reward them. And I think people are smart enough to know these days that those kind of things are important. It doesn't always have to be monetary, though. I mean, that may grow in the future, but, I think B2B brands should look at it more as it's advocacy, it's influencer, rather than, I'm trying to buy people to come into this community.
Okay, so the last topic for today is artificial intelligence, since you've been talking about that quite a lot.
Yeah.
So, how do you think AI has contributed to your marketing initiatives?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're one of the analysts that I talk to a lot. This guy called Jim Lundy at Aragon, and he always talks about AI washing, which means everyone says that they've got it, but once you look under the covers, what it actually is just a set of rules, right? A process and rules, and it's like a rule table, right? So that's not real. That's not real artificial intelligence. The examples that I think that I'm most excited about is if I look at what something that Snaplogic is doing, we are, as you connect to your company, it allows you to look at the applications that you've got and suggests, using artificial intelligence, it suggests how to connect them. So think about that. That's important. So you don't have to have as much training to understand the tools. If you can plug it in and then it suggests exactly where and how, because it understands from other learning and other customers and other connections, the best way to make that happen. There might be some manual, interaction at some point with some developer, someone in IT is going like, yeah, I want to do that slightly different, but it gets you going quickly, right? So that's important. The goal, I mean, one of the things that we've talked about here, which would be super cool. Imagine if you could do that through voice command. So imagine you plugged in Snaplogic and you talked to Snaplogic and said, Snaplogic, connect my enterprise. And then it had all these things go off. I mean, then you need to have a conversational intelligence tool as well as the platform. But like possibilities there are immense, especially for someone like a marketer. Like I'm not going to get in there and code. I don't want my marketing ops team to code. But if they had something that they could just quickly integrate and all of a sudden we're seeing the data out of it, that would be brilliant. So that's one part. The other piece that one of the reasons why I joined my last company, People AI, and I think the things that they're doing is incredible. It was a way to be able to understand what happens when marketing creates a lead or creates MQLs and they go to the sales team. Unless you have a discussion with the sales team, or unless every salesperson is entering everything in Salesforce or CRM, which they don't do. The power of the tool was it would help you identify who was followed up on, how many calls were made, how many emails have calendar invites been sent to customers. It would read the contents of emails to create sentiment. So this had this level of intelligence that marketers could get that in real time. So we actually knew I could look at a campaign and I could say, we've got 1,000 names, but there's no leads. There's no pipeline generated from it. Well, why is that? Today, if I do that, I have to really I have to call the sales team and look into the leads and get into the details. What the power of a tool like that, what People I have, is I could get a report that said, yeah, there's no pipeline, but that's because only 20 leads were followed up on. No one's sent an email. No one's had a calendar invite. No one's made phone calls. Like it would look across what was going on in the other systems, like your email system, your calendar system, not just CRM, and it will pull that data in. So that impacts so many other things, not just marketers. It helps on understanding the forecast. Like, is it real when someone puts it in stage 2? If they had it in stage 2, you should have made a few calls, got some emails, you've entered into your CRM, who you're meeting with. The sales team generally don't do that in the same kind of timing, but there are tools out there that now tell you whether something's been scheduled. That's super powerful because I can see, oh yeah, this campaign or this event hasn't been that successful, but it's because no one's followed up on it yet, right? And then again, what I talked earlier, alignment of data between sales and marketing. Guess what? If you're both looking at that data, it's really hard for someone to say, well, the campaign was crap. It just wasn't the right thing. Well, yeah, of course, because no one's followed up on anything. So how can we really make that judgment? So there's a little bit of CYA for the marketing team too. But again, if you're all looking at the same data, the power is there for sales and marketing to be more successful together.
Okay, so the real last question that I ask everyone on this interview is, what would you be doing if not this?
Okay. I ended up being in marketing because what I really wanted to do was be a psychologist. So I was, when you go to, you make the decision about which path you're going to go down, when I go to college, right? Because that's kind of like, you kind of choose your path at that point. I was looking at psychology, or I was looking at like business and IT. I didn't study marketing specifically. Anyway, I went down the business and IT path. But I think as I started in my career, I think I ended up going into marketing because it's the psychology of buying behavior, right? And I still love that piece. I still love, like I said, I like listening to people, like understanding kind of what their challenges are. So I like that. That's what I really like about the marketing piece, and everything of how your brand looks at an event, what it looks like on the website, what the colors do, what the imagery does. I love all that piece of it too. But if I was ever to leave this profession and I could actually, afford to go back to college and restudy, I think it would be psychology or psychiatry or something like that, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think anyone is ever like, born and as a kid and is like, oh, I want to do marketing when I grow old. No one actually has that career, but they somehow end up in it. And a lot of people who love psychology are around in this career. So actually, I actually think it's absolutely amazing to be a marketer. I get to do more practical psychology than I would do if I was in academia. So
Sure. That's for sure.
All right, well, that's the end of the interview. Thanks, everyone, for joining us for this month's episode of Outgrow's Marketer of the Month. That was Dale Hall, who's the CMO at Snaplogic. Thanks for joining us, Dale.
Thanks, mate.
Check out their website for more details, and we'll see you once again next month with another Marketer of the Month.